Once upon a time, there lived three young friends named Mickey, Donald, and Goofy. They dreamed that someday they'd be musketeers, brave soldiers who lived by the words, "All for one and one for all." When they grew up, Mickey, Donald, and Goofy got jobs at Musketeer headquarters. They hoped that if they did good work, Captain Pete, head of the Musketeers, would notice them. Captain Pete did notice them when they broke a water pipe while he was taking his monthly shower. He burst into the cellar and scowled at them. Mickey's dog, Pluto, whimpered. He could see how angry the captain was. "We wants to be musketeers, so we were practicing our teamwork," Mickey explained. Pete just laughed. He knew they'd never be musketeers. Mickey was too small. Donald was an award, and Goofy as well, Goofy. The three friends went back to work, hoping their luck would change. Meanwhile, Captain Pear decided he wanted more power. He came up with a plan to become King of France. He would kidnap Princess Minnie, then he would get one of his men to impersonate her and announce that Pete was the new king. Before Pete could do anything, Princess Minnie asked him to pay her a visit. She was planning to travel more and wanted musketeer bodyguards. Pete knew that real musketeers would interfere with his plan. Luckily, he had an idea. He smiled slyly. "I've got just the men for you, Princess," he promised. "He wants to see Mickey, Donald and Goofy." "Congratulations," he said. "You three have what it takes to be musketeers." The three friends couldn't believe it. Their dreams had come true. Mickey shouted, "All for one and two for tea." Goofy finished. Mickey laughed. "It's one for all," he exclaimed. "Now that we're real musketeers, that's our motto." Pluto barked happily. Later, Captain Pete presented his three new musketeers to Princess Minnie and told her that they would keep her safe. Just after he left, Minnie's attendant, Daisy, walked in carrying a tray with some biscuits, cheese, and a knife. "Knife!" shouted Goofy. "Get her!" yelled Donald. The three musketeers tackled Daisy and wrestled the knife away from her. "Ah!" Daisy cried. "Stop it!" Princess Minnie ordered. The new musketeers stopped fighting and hung their heads in embarrassment. They halted a very good start. Later that day, the princess decided to go to town with Daisy. The three musketeers rode with them. Pete decided it was the perfect time to kidnap Minnie. He sent the Beagle Boys to do the job. They hid on a tree branch and waited for the royal coach to pass by. When it did, bam, they jumped onto its roof. Mickey and Goofy were ready to fight, but Donald jumped inside the coach. "Get Buck out there!" Minnie scolded Donald. She pushed him out, but he landed in a mud puddle. He watched as Mickey and Goofy tried to fight the Beagle Boys. The kidnappers quickly outwitted Goofy, and little Mickey was no match for the big bully Scion. The musketeers had been defeated. The Beagle Boar captured the Exact and Princess Minnie and Dan. As the three musketeers watched the coach speed away, Mickey said, "Pete made us musketeers, remember?" His friends nodded. "Then let's go save the princess," Mickey shouted. The three musketeers quickly ran after the coach. They found it in front of a deserted tower. Mickey and Donald pulled on the tower door, but it wouldn't budge. "Gosh, why don't I try?" Goofy suggested. He charged into the door as hard as he could. Bam! It swung open, with Mickey and Donald close behind. Goofy ran up the stairs. He pushed the kidnappers out of a window and into the river below. Then the three musketeers escorted the guys back to the palace, where good stood guard. Pete wasn't going to give up that easily, though. He sent his lieutenant, Clarabelle, to lure Goofy away. "Musketeer Goofy," she called, "I am in need of your assistance." Goofy walked straight out of the palace, toward the voice. Clarabelle tackled him at once. Meanwhile, Donald was patrolling the palace as well. He spotted the Beagle Boys and bravely drew his sword. Then the Beagle Boys drew their weapons. There were so many that Donald got scared and hid inside a suit of armor. While the Musketeers were distracted, Pete captured Minnie and Daisy. Luckily, Donald saw them. Mickey had been patrolling in another wing of the castle when he heard a commotion. He found Donald, who told him that Pete had kidnapped Princess Minnie and Daisy. Mickey was shocked. But he made us Musketeers. It was all a lie. Donald cried, well, lure no lie, Musketeers don't run from danger. Mickey began. And as long as we wear these uniforms, neither do we. But Donald was still scared. He gave Mickey his uniform and left. Well, if it ain't the one Musketeer, Mickey heard a voice say. Bravely, Mickey turned around. It was Captain Pete. By the power vested in me as a Musketeer, I arrest you. Mickey cried. Pete laughed and captured Mickey, then he brought him to an island prison and chained him to a wall. Looks like this is the end of the line, he told Mickey. My pals will rescue me, Mickey shot back, face it. Pete yelled. You're on your own. And now I'm leaving for the opera, where I'll become king. Then he pulled the cap off a nearby pipe. Water suddenly began to pour into the dunes. Soon it would be flooded. Mickey wasn't the only one in danger, though. Clarabelle still had Goofy in her clutches and was about to throw him off a bridge. The bridge railing gave way, and Goofy fell over the edge. Luckily, Donald was in a boat just below. He and Pluto had been searching for Goofy. The boat sank, but they made it to the riverbank. Goofy knew they had to save Mickey. It's all for one and one for all, he reminded Donald, who was still scared. Pluto barked in agreement. In the dungeon, the water had risen up to Mickey's chin. Just when it looked as if all hope was lost, Goofy and Donald arrived. They quickly freed Mickey and pulled his safety. Thanks, guys, Mickey said. When the three of us stick together. Goofy began. We can do anything. Donald finished. Mickey stood up. Musketeers, we've got a princess to save. The three friends raced off to the opera. When the Three Musketeers got there, two of the Beagle Boys were carrying Minnie and Daisy out in a large sack. All right, you two, drop the princess. Mickey ordered. The Beagle Boys drew their swords. The fight was on. Meanwhile, the third Beagle Boy, dressed as Princess Minnie, walked on stage. My loyal subjects, the fake princess said, would like to introduce you to the man who will be your new ruler, King Pete. The audience was shocked. Mickey freed Minnie and Daisy and walked on stage. It's all over. Captain Pete told Mickey as he stepped on stage, too. And you're all alone. Mickey turned around. Goofy and Donald were nowhere in sight. But Mickey knew he could count on his friends. He was sure they'd appear at any moment. Then he heard Donald and Goofy cry, all for one and one for all. They burst on stage, still in the middle of a sword fight with the Beagle Boys. The Three Musketeers knocked the stuffing out of Captain Pete. They had triumphed. Princess Minnie was so grateful that she made the three friends royal musketeers. Mickey, Donald, and Goofy could hardly believe it. They might not have been the bravest soldiers, but by working together, they had succeeded. As the crowd cheered, Mickey couldn't help but shout. All for one, everyone, even Princess Minnie added, and one for all.